When my friend came up to me and told me that Sean Powell was on the list, I took out my phone and I called him. That's really when it hit me, and I was like, okay, this is real. I'm a New York City firefighter, and I responded to 9/11, and I am a Muslim.
Welcome back. You just saw that fantastic clip from Domestic Crusaders. Wajahad, I want to ask you a question. Sure. You saw in your clip how the individual was being harassed, or what we call Islamophobia, and being stereotyped and something like that. How salient is that in terms of young people's anger and because certainly people shouldn't take it lying down. I mean, so when you're mistreated, when you're treated with bigotry, and that's what it is. We call it Islamophobia, but I'm from the old school, so it's just plain old, it's same soup, different boat, just plain old racial bigotry. How important is it addressing that particular issue? Because we don't want to raise youth apolitical. We want them to be able to respond to this. So how important is for young people to be able to respond to this type of bigotry and discrimination?
I mean, you touched on a really good point, is that we want people to respond and not react. Because if you just react mindlessly, or unfortunately, if you react improperly, incorrectly, un-Islamically, or illegally, unfortunately, you see the fruits of those results, which are radicalized both here and abroad. But you also need to empower and educate the youth to respond, because we live in the United States of America, where we have civil liberties and we have laws. And as you were saying, is that this increased profiling, this increased bigotry, if you will, this unfairness, that many men, especially men with darker skin tones and multi-syllabic last names who happen to be Muslim or Middle Eastern experience, it basically just adds fuel to the fire of the narrative that, look, U.S. is against you, or U.S. is against Muslims, and U.S. is against Islam. And that, when it taken to a dangerous radicalized route, really kind of transforms an individual who could be seemingly normal and as you could say, quote unquote, assimilated, whatever that means, or just living a good life. It could feed the narrative that America is against them and is against Islam, and the only way to respond is through violence. What we've seen in that clip specifically is the son, who I don't think he reacts. He tries to respond, and he tries to intellectualize it, and he tries his best in a way to see both sides of the story. Yes, he's angry, but he says, why is it about me, or was it about me that makes people angry? And what he settles on is that it's ignorance. People just don't know. So for that son in that play, that clip right now, he thinks education is the best way.
Sure.
For some others, it could be the law, and for others, it could be a combination of both.
You're absolutely right, but you got to find a way to harness that energy, harness that rage. I mean, because it's there. I mean, I myself, as an African American and as a Muslim, I got the double whammy. I got to worry about driving while black and flying while Muslim. You know what I'm saying? So it's frustrating, but you got to be able to channel that energy into a positive response.
Right.
How do you feel about that, Naima?
Well, that's a great way arts is a great way to address that energy, because a lot of times they'll write out their frustrations in a poem and perform it in spoken word, and that's a way just to release that energy. And at the same time, you're letting people know how you feel, and you're educating people on the frustrations as a young Muslim in America. So that's
Yeah, want to jump into here?
She's right, because people can put in, I think part of it is sharing it too with an audience, getting in front of the crowd, the audience, and letting them go, just releasing. Because even myself, I have some pieces where are very powerful, and I like to shout a lot,
Yeah,
in my poetry, and other people too. I mean, because it helps release it off the chest, and that may be a means to take care of that.
Yeah, you've got to find a positive way to channel it in, because you got two extremes that you got to deal with. People are always thinking about the extremes in terms of those wayward Muslims who are on the internet, causing, trying to make this seductive, mad scenario. But also, you've got agent provocateurs in law enforcement. Out there in Orange County, you had someone who's being paid by the government to go out and try to bring young people into something that was dangerous. So we have to make sure that we're putting up this prophylactic shield, so our young people don't wind up spending their time, their entire life in jail, because as we say in the hood, ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun,
Oh, yeah. And I mean, also arts is an opportunity to educate, because a lot of people that come to these events that are not Muslim, or they read the brother's blog or whatever, they're being educated, because like you said, they don't know a Muslim. How are they going to know about it unless they talk to a Muslim? And so even many of my friends who've known me for years know that I'm Muslim, but they really kind of look at me first as being a black man. I don't know what to do with me having the locks or whatever.
Yeah, I thought you were a Rasta, man.
Yeah, they think I'm a Rasta, but then I go to them and I say, no, I'm a Muslim. And it starts that dialogue. And then when you start to hear the arts and you hear things and you start to see that people have different types of personalities, you have different ways that you identify yourself. I identify myself as Muslim, African American, a male, a father, a husband, and you start to see the 360-degree position that a lot of Muslim youth do have. And then once you see that through the arts, I think that you'll start to see those people more as not just a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian, but as a person. And being a Muslim is a part of your identity.
Yeah, and I want to really check. We don't have an awful lot of time, but I want to just kind of go through this really quick. I'm going to start with you, Brother Wajahat, and then I'm going to ask her to flip it really quickly. This whole issue of identity, how important is that, especially for Muslim youth? Wajahat.
It's the critical, I think it's the critical question for American Muslims in the 21st century. What does it mean to be an American Muslim? What is the extent of what an American Muslim can be and can do? Is there, are they mutually exclusive? Can a person both be Muslim and American? I think this is a question that really needs to be addressed, is being addressed. One of the ways it can be addressed and should be addressed is through art and culture, which is a form of expression. It's a form of response. It's a form of creating our narrative and our stories. And identity is created through stories. I mean, that's been going on for thousands of years. So this question of identity, I think, is probably the top two, or even say the number one problem affecting us right now.
Sure. Tahir.
I think he's correct. Right now, it's important to create a Muslim identity, and that is done through the arts, through the culture, and through a common unity, something that we all can relate to. So I think it helps.
Okay. Naima?
I think it's extremely important because once you know who you are, then you know how to educate people on who you are, which is the problem. A lot of people don't know. So if you first understand who you are, then it's easier to let someone else know.
Okay.
I think it's important for us to embrace our identity as a Muslim and how that interwoven into the fact that we are American and that we're proud to be American. That doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with everything the government does, but you cannot take my identity away because my people, meaning the slaves, helped to build this country. We are this country. So to say we're new, we have to identify ourselves here, we are here. So now, like the brother said, what do we do and how do we identify ourselves and express ourselves? And I think the arts and I think the blogs and things like that are ways that we can express ourselves and show who we are.
Well, I think this kind of brings us full circle because we're talking about who we are, and not only who we are, but who we are in terms of who do we belong to. And of course, that's the central issue, whom we belong to. Well, once again, we're going to take a quick break, as we say, pause for the cause, but we want to show this wonderful clip that we've got from Crescent Moon Night. So we're going to show that clip right now.
See, when I travel, I pay this fee to be 9/11 protected. But my last name is Muhammad, so let me tell you how I'm affected. At security, they tell me I've been randomly selected. So I have to step to the side so I can be personally metal detected, and then I hear these words, "Miss, you must remove your scarf." So now it's me versus security. Let's see who has the most heart, because I replied, should I take my clothes off too? Because like my skirt and my shirt, my scarf will not be removed. And my position will forever be unmoved. And it's about to be some real problems, because I don't know what you're trying to prove. So they called for backup, y'all. They called their whole crew. "Miss, if you don't allow us to see your hair, we can't allow you to pass through." So I missed my plane 7 times, and I told them all that they could kiss the very nook and crevice of my behind, because if they thought I was taking my scarf off for them, they have clearly lost their minds. And one day I was at the gas station, you won't believe what this white boy said. He looked me in my face and he called me a raghead. And I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted to make sure that him and his friends would never disrespect another Muslim again. So he apologized when he got up from off his back. But it was too late for that. You see, he knew that I was Muslim. I guess he forgot that I was black.
Well, that's all we have time for in this episode. I want to thank all of my guests for being here today. And of course, I want to thank you, the viewers, all of you for watching. And I invite you to tune in next week for part 2 of this discussion. And I'll share my final thoughts about this topic then. Until then, make sure to check out Living Islam in America's Facebook and on Twitter at LIIA Show. And as always, until next time, I'll be living Islam in America.
Waking up in the morning, gotta make my prayer. Am I really gonna make it, when there's no one there? Taking trips to the masjid, even when it's tough. Am I going for the sake of Allah? Am I showing off? Gonna get me the knowledge, gonna study Islam. Am I going just to build my ego, so they call me the man? Doesn't matter if the people respect me, when it's not for Allah. When I know any time it can take me, without one real dua. Doesn't matter if they say I'm a big shot, when I get no reward for my deeds. And I'm trying on the day of resurrection, for the folks that I wanted to please. Cause I know that Allah has the power to raise me up in their eyes if it need be. I should always make my intentions for my Lord Allah completely.
My intentions are right. Am I doing it for Allah? When I'm looking deep down inside,